$4.5 billion. That is the annual economic output of a small country. To make that amount of money disappear requires extraordinary engineering. And this theft targeted a sovereign nation, the government of Malaysia. The architect of this extraction was a pudgy, soft-spoken 20-something from Penang named Joe Low. He had no formal title, no executive position, and an almost constant disarming smile. He successfully routed this stolen capital straight through the United States. He used American banks to process the transactions, Wall Street firms to raise the debt, and Hollywood to wash the proceeds. Low weaponized human psychology, exploiting a specific loophole, the global financial system's unquestioned reverence for sovereign wealth. To understand his method, we have to go back to his teenage years at Harrow, one of Britain's most elite boarding schools. Here, Joe Low studied the children of Arab royalty and Western billionaires. He noticed a specific operational quirk of high finance. Reputation precedes verification. If you confidently pick up a massive tab and drop the right names, bankers assume you have institutional backing. They stop asking for receipts. By 2009, he found the perfect vehicle to test this theory, 1MDB. This was a state-owned investment fund created by Malaysia's Prime Minister, Najib Razak, ostensibly to finance domestic infrastructure projects. Joe Low never appeared on any organizational chart for 1MDB. He operated as a shadow director, manipulating the fund's decisions through back channels and intermediaries. 1MDB converted Low's social engineering into institutional borrowing power. He now controlled a state-backed financial vehicle. He just needed someone to fund it. Enter Goldman Sachs. Between 2012 and 2013, the investment bank, led in the region by an ambitious banker named Tim Leissner, agreed to underwrite 3 massive bond deals for 1MDB. Look at this chart. It compares standard investment banking fees for sovereign debt, which usually hover around 0.1% to 0.5%, next to Goldman's fee for the 1MDB bonds, an enormous 9.4%. They secured this by structuring the transaction as a bought deal, meaning Goldman purchased the bonds directly to take on the price risk, then resold them. That high-risk structure generated over $600 million in fees for Goldman Sachs. When the margins are that thick, the internal compliance departments meant to flag suspicious activity get flattened by the pressure to close the deal. Multiple compliance officers raised red flags about Joe Low's involvement. Deal teams overrode them. The system functioned exactly as designed, when incentivized by 9-figure payouts. This flowchart tracks the initial extraction. Almost immediately after the first bond sale, $700 million is wired directly from 1MDB into an offshore shell company in the British Virgin Islands called Goodstar Limited, a company entirely controlled by Joe Low. He took that stolen public money and routed it through a maze of accounts, eventually funneling tens of millions to a production company. Their marquee project? The Martin Scorsese film The Wolf of Wall Street. He also needed to convert cash into hard assets to clean it. He bought Basquiat and Monet paintings at auction, luxury real estate in Manhattan, and commissioned a 91-meter, $250 million super yacht. He flew Britney Spears in for a private birthday party and paid Paris Hilton to DJ his events, dropping millions in a single night in Las Vegas. This consumption served a mechanical purpose. Surrounding himself with A-list celebrities and picking up $2 million bar tabs creates social proof. Banks and business partners assumed he was a legitimate billionaire, which obscured the theft occurring in plain sight. The illusion held until investigative reporters from the Wall Street Journal and the Sarawak Report started pulling at the financial threats. Their reporting provided the blueprint for the U.S. Department of Justice to launch the largest kleptocracy asset recovery case in American history. The political reckoning hit in May 2018. An outraged Malaysian public mobilized at the ballot box, handing Najib Razak's party a historic defeat and dismantling the political protection that kept the fraud alive. When authorities raided Najib's properties, they found over $28 million in jewelry, $24 million in cash, and 567 luxury handbags. This is the reality of a looted country. While Low stockpiled Hermes bags, the Malaysian public absorbed billions in debt, money siphoned away from schools, hospitals, and national infrastructure. Eventually, the hammer fell on the facilitators. Najib Razak was sentenced to 12 years in a Malaysian prison. Goldman Sachs banker Roger Ng got 10 years in federal prison, and Goldman as an institution paid roughly $5 billion in global settlements. But Joe Low never stood in a courtroom. He remains a fugitive, believed to be living in mainland China, far beyond the reach of Western extradition treaties. The specific regulatory gaps he used are still active. Foreign funds can still route massive sums through U.S. correspondent banking channels, with limited surveillance. and anonymous shell companies can still hide beneficial owners from public scrutiny. Until the global financial system closes those specific loopholes and places rigorous transparency above massive transaction fees, the infrastructure required for the next massive sovereign heist is sitting there, waiting to be used.